Donald Jones, a meteorologist out of the local National Weather Service office. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Is it possible to put into perspective just the rainfall that we saw yesterday, and how rare is an event like this in Lake Charles?
Well, it's certainly a historical event, throughout history, although it seems like recently we've been getting historical events every few months. This will be the fourth major natural disaster we've had in the last 9 months here in Lake Charles. We had, as you remember, Hurricane Laura, Hurricane Delta. We had pretty significant impacts from the ice storm back in February, and now this major flooding event across the area. For a 24-hour total here in Lake Charles, we received just over 12 inches. Some of the highest numbers, though, go up to about 16 or 17 inches, which is a daily record for some locations, and it's number 3, I believe, all time for us here at the Lake Charles Regional Airport. So it's certainly a very significant event, historically speaking, across our area.
Now, talking about this event specifically, it was in such a short amount of time. How does that compare to maybe a tropical system that's long duration, or some of the impacts that we saw comparative to that, if we could?
Yeah, most of the rainfall that fell, it only fell in about a 6-hour period, which is actually very similar to what we would see in a tropical system. We are in kind of a tropical air mass, and the storms were producing rainfall very similar to what we would see in, say, a weak tropical storm or a tropical depression. It was a very heavy rain producing event, and it fell in a relatively short period of time. So in that respect, it was very similar. The only difference is, in this case, we really didn't have a whole lot of warning or time to prepare like you would with the typical tropical cyclone. So it caught a lot of people off guard.
How is this affecting the waterways or the rivers, the creeks, the streams that feed into the Gulf? Are those swollen, or what can we expect with the tributaries at this point?
It's going to take several days for that water to drain off, and there are going to be several inhibiting factors that's going to slow that down. First, we're still looking at several days of additional rainfall, but we're also looking at a fairly decent south wind still coming out off the Gulf of Mexico. That's actually going to push water out of the Gulf and into those area waterways and slow down any of the drain off that's actually occurring. So it's going to be several days to maybe a week or more before all of that water is able to finally drain off.
And you mentioned it, there's still several more days ahead with rain in the forecast. What is, again, the biggest concern going forward when it comes to flooding?
Well, we're anticipating the fact that the ground is already saturated and the area waterways are already full. We're expecting an additional 6 to 8, maybe even more than that, inches of rainfall here over the next 2 to 3 days. We've got several upper level disturbances moving across the region, so that heavy rain threat is going to continue today, tomorrow, Thursday, maybe even into Friday. So the important thing to keep in mind is that although the rain has stopped for now, this event as a whole is a long way from being over, and the flash flood threat across the area remains significant. We do have a flash flood watch still in effect across the entire region, pretty much all of South Louisiana, until at least Thursday evening, because that's how long the threat is going to remain.
And just one last question for you. What are some tips residents can take away just to stay safe during flash flooding?
Well, the first and probably the biggest tip that I've seen so far is, if you don't have to be out on the roadways, absolutely do not travel through or near floodwaters. Forecasters around here, just driving in and out, back and forth to and from the office here, have been passing stalled vehicles for the last 18 to 24 hours or so, and there are still vehicles just right in the middle of the roadways that had to be abandoned due to the significant heavy rainfall and the flash flooding. So if you absolutely don't have to be out and about, I strongly discourage any kind of travel. And the other thing is just, hunker down. You don't want to play in floodwaters. It's a very nasty environment. In fact, one of our forecasters driving back to their home yesterday saw an alligator swimming around in some of the floodwaters. So it's not a safe, it's not like a swimming pool. You don't want to be out in it if you don't absolutely have to be, because it's very nasty water. So stay out of the water as much as possible, either at your home or on the road.
Well, thanks again, Donald, for joining us on Weather Nation, and we appreciate everything you're doing there, and stay safe.